So let's kick off. Let's dive right into today's topic, how to promote employee mental health. And we are sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. And I am so thrilled to be joined today by three amazing panelists um, and team members from the Navy Federal Credit Union team. So I'm going to pass it over to each one of our panelists, and we would love to hear from you, to take a minute and introduce yourselves, and take a minute. I'd also love to hear what's going on in your life personally and professionally, and if you could share a little bit about your role at Navy Federal Credit Union. We are going to start with Beth. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm really, really excited to kick this off with you. My name is Beth Godwin, and I lead the wellness team at Navy Federal. Our team oversees employee wellness programs to support overall well-being, including mental health at Navy Federal. And for me, mental health is really important. It's something that I focus on myself quite a bit. I kind of came to mental health through physical health. I've sort of come full circle now. But personally, I'm a huge fan of Orange Theory Fitness. For me, at least, physical activity is a must for my mental well-being. It really helps me just sleep better and feel better and manage my own mental health and my mental health condition. Um, Professionally at work, I would say our team is going through some change right now, like organizational change and team change. And I think that's kind of the world we're in right now is just things change pretty rapidly. And so making sure we take care of our mental health during that change, I think is really important.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. And Emily, I'd love to hear from you next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm also really excited to be here. My name is Emily Derbyshire. I'm a wellness program coordinator on the wellness team at Navy Federal Credit Union. Personally, I've always been really passionate about wellness, which is what brought me to study health promotion. So I received my bachelor's degree in health promotion from American University. I'm currently furthering my education at Boston University, studying public health for my master's. And at Navy Federal, I work with our employee assistance program and other mental and emotional well-being communication. So really passionate about this topic and really excited to be here. So thank you.
And we are excited to have you. Thank you, Emily. And then, of course, I would love to hear from Stephanie. Could you introduce yourself and tell us about your role?
Absolutely. Super excited to be here with this amazing panel and talking about this really important topic. So my name is Stephanie George. I'm a senior manager over healthcare and wellness in our employee benefits group at Navy Federal. My role is really pulling together the tie between our healthcare benefits, the strategy around that, and around our well-being benefits to really take care of our employees and help them thrive and help support their families as well. Which is a really incredible thing to be a part of. Personally, I am a very busy mom of two young girls, 4 and 6 years old, and so they take up a lot of my time. And it is a reason why mental health is super important to me and balancing all of the things. So they keep me very busy. And then professionally, there's just so many cool things happening in this space all the time. Wellness has always been a passion of mine. I've been in the area for over 10 years now. And so it's really incredible to see how things continue to evolve and opportunities that come up to support people, especially their mental health.
Thank you all. I am so excited for our discussion today. Like you all said, it is so important, and I'm really excited about your insights, and we will dive into all of those things later. Balance and the Orange Theory shout out, we'll talk about that. I'm excited. And for those just tuning in, I would love to remind everyone that we will be answering your questions directly. So we will have a moment to do audience questions. So please feel free to join us in that stage chat. And we will do our best to respond to as many as we can. And with that, let's dive right into our questions. I have some great questions for our lovely panelists today. And Mental health. So let's dive right in. Mental health has always been important. In the past few years, it's really risen to the forefront of the conversation. A lot of people are talking about this in the workplace. So I would love to hear from each of you about why it's important that we normalize this conversation at work. Why is it important that we normalize discussing mental health in the workplace? Let's start with you, Beth.
Perfect. Um, I think it's important that we normalize it because mental health is something that we all have. Not everyone has a mental health condition, but everyone has mental health. It's part of our overall well-being. So I'm really happy that so many conversations are happening now around mental health, and I want to be part of keeping that up, continuing that. And our mental health, it affects and reflects in like how we show up every day and how we perform at our jobs and how we feel about our work and our coworkers. And it's just an important thing for us to talk about, I think. And when it comes to our well-being needs, we're all different. We all have different needs and unique needs, but we do all have mental health. Like I said, and at Navy Federal, we think mental health is so important that it is one of our 7 wellness dimensions, in fact.
Yeah, so just to elaborate on the wellness dimensions, so mental health is obviously a really important component that we focus on here. But as Beth said, it's one of 7. So we really look at individuals holistically and try to support the whole person as part of our employer value proposition here at Navy Federal and really taking care of our employees. We truly believe when we take care of our employees, we ultimately take better care of our members, and we're really proud to be an employee-powered organization. In addition to focusing on 7 wellness dimensions, we surround that with diversity, inclusion, and belonging to really acknowledge those unique perspectives and needs. And it's part of us trying to create this really strong culture of belonging and a place where candid communication is really valued. And so we've spent a lot of time creating a supportive environment where individuals can feel comfortable speaking up about something like mental health, which traditionally has been a really tough topic. We've spent a lot of time building that culture and destigmatizing mental health conversations in the workplace, and it's been really incredible. We've seen people start to talk more and more about it, and we find that it really opens up opportunity for shared experiences and connection, and just raising awareness and understanding, which ultimately supports total well-being. So it's a really interrelated and important topic, and it's been really incredible to see it expand in the past few years.
I love
building,
that. Yeah.
And building off of that, going off what Steph said, we promote mental health resources often. I think awareness is very important. Awareness, what we offer, what's available to you, what's available to your families. So at Navy Federal, we openly promote employer benefits and resources that support both team members and their families. We have a dedicated intranet page to house all of our mental health and emotional well-being resources. So again, I think just awareness of what's out there too, and what we have to support our team members.
Thank you all. Such great insights. It sounds like Navy Federal Credit Union has a lot of support systems and tools, and also just the way that you talk about it. I love the language around belonging and destigmatizing. The more that we talk about this, the more our fellow employees can feel comfortable talking about it. Thank you. Next question. So I would love to hear about your top advice on how to handle conversations about mental health, particularly with your manager. So I'd love to hear from each of you on your perspective, either as a manager or as a direct report. How do you begin a conversation about mental health with your manager? If you're nervous about it, what are some tips that our audience can take away? Maybe Steph, we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think from the manager side, it's really important to start before the conversation in creating a psychologically safe workplace, an environment where you invite those conversations and let folks know it's okay and that they can come talk to you. And then when they do come speak with you, really listening actively, seeking to understand with empathy and showing genuine concern for individuals. You're not the one that's going to have to fix it, but knowing what your resources are to support them and really helping them feel heard I think is super important. At Navy Federal, we really encourage leaders to practice whole heart leadership and emphasize that work-life harmony. And then I think on the other side, if you're the one trying to speak up, I think it's important to lean into that culture and trust it and not be afraid to say what's on your mind and how your leader can help you. They'll actually be really grateful to you for speaking up and sharing what's going on and asking proactively so that they can work with you.
And I would add to that. Well, first, I want to say Steph is actually my manager. And I want to give her a huge shout out because she does all the things that she just said. She creates a very safe environment for her team to feel comfortable coming to her and, sharing what's on our mind personally, professionally, mental health. So major kudos to Steph for doing that. And just to kind of reiterate some of the things she said, I think being open and being vulnerable. I like to share things in a one-on-one, and I even will just say I'm a little nervous or this is a little awkward for me, but I wanted to talk to you about this. So I just like to kind of get it out up front that it's a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. Um, and I think being open and vulnerable, it's not a weakness. It's really a sign of strength. I think it can take strength and courage to share personal things like that with others. So vulnerability is absolutely not a weakness. Um, and I think too, like Steph said, it's leaders can absolutely create the environment. I think team members can also create the environment where people feel like it's okay to share and it's safe to share. I think it really can come from both sides. And at Navy Federal, we try to create that safe environment by using this motto of do, learn, grow. And it's really a way for us to say that it's okay to fail. It's okay to try new things. It's a way to give grace and space to create that safe environment to try different things and to share different things.
Thank you both for sharing. I love hearing that you work so closely together. You have direct experience in this. And yes, vulnerability takes strength. It might be awkward. It might be okay to say you're nervous, but you might be surprised that your manager will say, thank you so much for bringing this up. Thank you so much for sharing. And on a personal note, do you have any tips for how to protect your mental health at work? I would love to hear from each of you about just tips protecting your mental health and setting those boundaries in the workplace. Maybe Beth, we'll start with you.
Sure. I like to start with awareness, and for this topic, to me, that means some introspection and being aware maybe of what energizes you and what drains you and preparing for that. Full transparency, public speaking, while I really enjoy sharing information and talking to people, it drains me. So today I know I'm not going to make dinner. I'm going to order something for dinner. So again, I know how something makes me feel, and I'm kind of preparing in advance for that. Um, and I think that kind of speaks to taking ownership of your health and asking for what you need and preparing for what you need. Something else that I think is really helpful is connecting with others and talking to those who may have similar experiences. At Navy Federal, we have employee resource groups, ERGs, and something that has stood out to me about these ERGs is the realization that you're not alone. While your experience is unique, others may have similar experiences and maybe they've overcome a challenge, or maybe it's just someone to vent with, or to commiserate with, or who can maybe share their success or give you some positivity. So I personally find connecting with others to be very, very valuable to protecting my mental health. And then I think things too, like taking breaks and taking time off to recharge. I think my team knows I schedule my lunch break on my calendar because it's so important to me to be able to step away. There have been times where I have worked through lunch in the past, and just the way I feel at the end of the day is just absolutely drained. And I know that I haven't worked at my best. And not only did I not work my best at work, but I didn't feel my best after work. So I think taking breaks is so, so important.
To build on that, one thing I would recommend is try not to overcommit yourself. I think, again, going back to what Steph and Beth shared, being open with your leader, having those prioritization conversations. What is high priority? What maybe can wait until tomorrow or next week? So just making sure you're giving yourself time to do your best and to also have those breaks that you need, like your lunch break or taking your annual leave. Just giving yourself that time to recharge so you can be your best self both at work and in your home life.
Definitely love that. Yes, you have to know yourself and know your needs, and guard them. Thank you so much. And how does Navy Federal Credit Union support you in prioritizing your mental health and your needs? Maybe Emily, we'll start with you.
Sure. So Navy Federal listens to employee feedback. So we've listened to feedback through survey data and forums that express a desire for more support for employees with diverse needs. So we offer a comprehensive benefits package that supports both team members and their families of all abilities. And as Beth mentioned before, we also have a Diverse Abilities Network, which is our newest employee resource group for belonging. So it helps with connection, building an understanding of abilities in all forms, and also just growing your personal and professional network. So really, we listen to feedback, we hear team members, and we want to support them to the best we can.
And I do think, to add on, I think we do have so many great resources, a lot that have come from employee feedback and really just our dedication to offering the best possible services and programs and opportunities to connect. I think we really live out our values of service, integrity, and community, both externally and internally. And so we really try to help people connect with one another, with our mission, and as a community within Navy Federal, and then really provide excellent service to our team members through the programs and challenges, wellness challenges, and various offerings in support of their total well-being. I think one of the things that's helped me personally prioritize, and one of the great things I think that we do is we have so many education and training opportunities around not just mental health, but all different types of wellness topics. And then even beyond that, our learning and development group, they offer incredible resources, things with reskilling and upskilling and flexible work. In addition to that, they're also offering courses, like one that stands out to me is a course that they did around growth mindset. And so just things like that, just building off of the do, learn, grow mentality that Beth mentioned earlier, that growth mindset in particular for me was a huge win for my mental health because it really changed the way I thought about things, not just the way that I work, but also in life. Like, oh man, that presentation didn't go as well as I wanted it to. I'm never going to be good at that. Suddenly changed to, okay, some things went well and some things maybe I just haven't gotten good at yet. And so I think all of this amazing education and training and resources and programs and challenges, they're offered consistently throughout the year. It's always available when you need it. And I think that's really incredible. We're always talking about it. It's always part of the conversation and integrated into what we're doing. And that's been really valuable.
Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. The resources are available throughout the year so that, employees know that they can find them when they need them. And I also love that you mentioned a growth mindset. Personally, that is something I love, love, love. It's so important when I'm struggling at work, or I haven't learned something yet. I just say that I haven't learned that yet, which means you have an opportunity to learn it in the future. Awesome. Thank you so much. Now we are going to take a question or two from the audience. So thank you, participants and our audience members for typing in your questions. We do have one or two that we are going to ask. So let's see. We received one, and so it goes like this. My employer says that we have a culture where we can be radically candid in bringing up issues, but in reality, being radically candid is generally met with resistance and negativity. This can lead to a culture of fear and I want to know how I can express that there is dread coming into work and communicating with my employer. So do you have any advice, panelists, for our audience member that's curious about being met with resistance and negativity? What would you say?
I can try and take a first crack at that one. And first of all, my heart breaks that this is the experience that you're having. So, and thank you for speaking up and sharing your experience with us here. I think if it were me, and what's coming to mind immediately is if you haven't already spoken to your leader, whoever is sharing like that they want it to be this really positive environment and psychologically safe environment, if you haven't already directly addressed it with that person to say, hey, this is my actual experience, how can we, maybe you have ideas, or maybe brainstorm with them about like how are ways that we can maybe shift the conversation. The caveat to that is if that individual, that leader is the one that you're struggling with and you don't feel comfortable going to them, another option potentially could be, I think that's the best case, but another option could potentially be going to someone who you do trust within the organization and sharing your observation with them and starting to partner with other advocates who can start to introduce that conversation. But I think it's so important to name it. And that's the best way you can go about addressing it, is by talking about it and sharing your own experience.
I can also jump in. I think if you have access to an employee assistance program, they might be able to support you and coach you with maybe how to approach that conversation, maybe what's good language to use, and practice with them. So that could be another option if it's available to you.
Thank you both for supporting that audience member. Great question. Another one came in from a management standpoint. Do you have any advice for discussing mental health with a staff member without overstepping? They might be visibly showing that they are struggling with mental health, but they haven't outright brought it to your attention. Do you have any advice for this individual that's in a management position?
I'm happy to start with that one. For me, I find that stating my observations, and it might be, I've noticed you're a little quiet, or I've noticed you've been coming in later than normal. Whatever your observation is, I like to open by stating that. And at least in my experience, I found people are pretty quick to share once you just say what you've observed. But that's what I tend to try to start with. And then, like Emily was mentioning about resources, having those resources handy, maybe sharing them with everyone on your team. But for the individual in particular, I think stating what you're seeing, it can open the door for them to share whenever they're comfortable.
That's great advice. Thank you, Beth.
The only thing I would add on is letting them know that they can come talk to you, letting them know that you're there for that. Like if they don't open up, I think most times they do when you make those observations, but in the event that they don't, I think just reminding them, hey, I'm here for you. If you need anything, I want you to know I'm here to support you. Just to kind of reiterate, sometimes people, it doesn't sink in the first time around. Sometimes it's all about the repetition. So just really making them know that you're there to support them. So they hopefully will come back and talk to you later, if not then.
And I think being a direct report, just having that culture, like for instance, Beth is my manager, we start our team meetings with an icebreaker question. So getting to know each other more, feeling comfortable with each other, feeling like we can talk to our leader if we do want to share something. So just again, going back to culture and having that open and direct communication.
That's awesome advice. Thank you each so much. I think we received some great questions, and we might have time to do maybe one more. Let's see. Really, really great stuff. It makes me think of my leaders that have really shown their providing that safe environment through repetition, like you mentioned. Really excellent stuff. Okay, we're gonna keep going with our questions for our panelists. So how do you each manage burnout and avoid burnout at work? How do you handle that for yourself? And if you're in a management position for your teammates? Let's start with you, Beth.
Sure. I love this question. Again, in the spirit of transparency, whenever I transitioned into my people leader role, I struggled pretty hard actually with the new requirements, and I did experience burnout. And from that experience, I have learned to set boundaries. And one of the things I do is manage my calendar very aggressively. Um, and I've learned to prioritize and reprioritize. I also really value talking to people that I trust. And it might just be that I want to vent or I want to get feedback, or maybe I want to ask someone to help me workshop something. And I'll typically ask that at the start of the conversation, or state that at the start of the conversation that, hey, I just need to vent for a second, or can I get a peer review? Can I get some feedback on this? Or could you help me work through this? I'm having a little bit of a hard time working through this. So I think talking to others, not internalizing it, not keeping it to myself, has been really important. Realizing I'm not on an island. I'm working with an entire team, and I can reach out to them has been very important for me.
Building off of Beth, I also manage my calendar to help me prevent burnout. If I'm working on a bigger project, I will set block time on my calendar throughout the week, so I know I have time to work on it. I don't feel overwhelmed. It doesn't feel like it's hanging over me. And I know I'll get it done. And then also lunch breaks. I will in the morning. Typically, I'll go into my calendar. I'll see where my meetings are, and then I'll block time for lunch. So I know I have time to refuel and recharge, so that I can, again, bring my best self to the second half of my day.
And if I could give a quick shout out to these ladies, they also follow through. So if someone reaches out, even someone like myself, who says, hey, I'm looking to schedule a meeting here, they will communicate if it is a hard boundary or if they do have some flexibility, because obviously things come up. But they will say, hey, would you mind? They'll understand what I'm asking, but they'll say, hey, would you mind? This is my period for this project. Is this something that can wait until Friday? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is, yeah, of course. Like, by all means, thanks for letting me know. And we can kind of flex it. So I think it's important to set those boundaries, but it's even more important to follow through. And honestly, when they do that, I feel like it creates permission for other people to do that when they see it in action and learning. So I think that's really powerful.
So powerful. Yes, absolutely. You can definitely set those time boundaries on your calendar. And like you said, Stephanie, following through, and it can be a conversation. Thank you all for communicating about that, because it can be, is this a hard stop, or do you have flexibility? And it can be a conversation, and that can really produce some more safety for all involved. And building off of that, I would love to hear if you can share any more advice about setting those boundaries at work. Those were some great tips. Do you have any more to really protect your time, protect your mental health, and really keep those boundaries for yourself and others in the workplace?
I can take the first crack on this one. If I'm struggling with setting a boundary, or once I've set a boundary, I usually will remind myself that I need to practice what I would expect other people to do and what I would want my team to do, because whether intentional or not, they're going to read into the actions that I take as a leader. And so I think it's really important to act the way I want to see them act, so that they can take care of themselves. And then having those conversations and candid communication. I remember our team during the pandemic, we would always say when we were going on lunch, and it was almost like a victory every time all of us had put that into the chat at one point. You build off of one another. And so I think don't be afraid to talk about your boundaries. Remind yourself that you're a role model, and also be mindful of how it feels. I think Beth kind of was speaking to this earlier, when you do hold your boundaries versus when you don't, so that you can, because chances are you're going to feel better when you do. And you can kind of build the evidence of, you know what, I actually work a lot better when I actually do take my lunch. So it kind of reinforces and helps you hold those boundaries going forward, because you know that the impact is going to be really positive.
Yeah, and I would build on that. And I agree, Steph, communication is key. Actually, our team now still says whenever we're going to lunch. We still put it in our group chat. Sometimes we ask, what are you having for lunch? So it's just kind of a fun communication thing too. But I think protecting your time, because you're not an infinite resource, you have limits, and that is okay. Um, I think being proactive and disciplined, it can be a little difficult to set boundaries, I think, because it does take a little bit of preparation and planning and follow through. So it does take, I think, a little bit of work sometimes to set those boundaries. So I think, putting that discipline in there and prioritizing. And some of the specific things I will do is, for example, meetings. If someone schedules a meeting and I don't know anything about it, I'll ask them like, "Hey, could you share a little bit about this meeting? Or do you have some materials you can share with me ahead of time so I'm prepared?" And then if I think, well, maybe we could accomplish this through email or through WebEx, I might suggest that. Maybe it's let's review, and then if we think we need to meet, let's meet. Otherwise, if we can take care of it through email, let's maybe do that. I think too, prioritizing and reprioritizing with my leader has been really helpful, especially if like a new assignment or new project comes up. I will let Steph know this is what I was focusing on this week. I have, A and B, and now C has come in. In order to focus on C, I need to shift these other things. Where can I shift them to? Can I push this out a week? Can I push this out 2 weeks? So I think also being aware of how much time it takes me to work on things, and how I need to focus and schedule has been really helpful. And just to reiterate something I think Steph said too, is that setting boundaries is really setting yourself up to be the best employee you can be and have some energy left over for yourself after work too.
Excellent, excellent stuff. Thank you so much. I love that you are setting yourself up to be the best employee that you can be, and also to have energy for your life. Still speaking on that topic, I would love to hear if you have tools, resources, or support systems that you regularly utilize or that your team utilizes to support mental health in the workplace. Emily, I'd love to start with you.
Sure. So Navy Federal does offer many resources to support mental health in the workplace. I'll share just a few today. So I want to start off with mentioning again our employee assistance program. So EAP counselors can help in areas like burnout, stress, health during the holidays, and other topics. We also have a platform called Celebrate You, and that's our employee recognition platform. And that reinforces gratitude across the organization. So if I notice my team member did a great job on something, I can go in and send them a card. It's just another way to show them, hey, you did great, and we appreciate all that you've done. We also have a President's Wellness Challenge, which I think really speaks to a lot of our culture around wellness. So our CEO sponsors this challenge annually. And within this challenge, team members can select the goal that resonates with them. So they could pick any wellness goal, and then they work towards that throughout the duration of the challenge. And at the end, employees have the option to submit stories to us sharing their accomplishments. And these have been very moving. They've included topics related to mental health or physical wellness and all the wellness goals that you can think of, really. So it's just very powerful, very moving to see what employees have accomplished throughout this duration of the challenge. And the last tool I want to mention is our hybrid workforce model. So we now have a lot of flexibility at Navy Federal, and I think that helps in both personal and professional lives. So having the flexibility with your schedule, speaking to your leader, again, being open about what's going on, at home if you need to adjust. So I think that's a really great perk too.
Yeah, we have so many. It's hard to just name a few, but I think EAP in particular has been really valuable to me. I think something else that has stood out to me is the options we have for connection. For example, because hearing about others' journeys, both through the President's Wellness Challenge stories and also through some of these communities, is just so powerful. We have a grassroots mindfulness community that offers daily meditation opportunities, which is really incredible. And they also work with different business units. to bring meditation practice and activities to different groups across the enterprise. But they also have a chat. And in the chat, they are so supportive of one another. We sort of alluded to this in earlier conversations, but they're so supportive of one another, and just they're so grateful to have those shared experiences and be able to support one another. It's really heartwarming. We also see those types of conversations in our employee resource group chats. And I think learning from others and hearing about their experiences and seeing the warmth between people and people taking care of one another is just really energizing and really heartwarming. So I think those have been really impactful for me.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. Those sound like really stellar offerings from Navy Federal Credit Union. It goes back to what we were talking about at the top of the webinar, belonging. When people share their stories and you can support each other and really connect on that, it can be extremely powerful. So thank you so much for sharing. All right, I think at this time we have a moment for a few more questions from the audience. So really excited to engage with some great questions that we've gotten from our excellent audience. So let's dive in. All right, as someone who graduated from college, I was wondering how you can ask employers in job interviews about mental health policies. During my college career, I would always say I pack 48 hours of work into 24 hours, and I want to be sure I am not missing out on mental health support in the workplace setting. So that's a great question. Who wants to take a stab at that?
I will give it a shot. And Beth, if you want to add on, please feel free. I think you can go about it two ways. I think you can ask outright, let me go not the outright version first. You could ask about their culture and ask them to tell you a little bit more about their workplace culture and how they support employees' total well-being. And hopefully mental health will come up as a key piece of that. I think you could also outright ask, what do you all do to support your employees' mental and emotional health, or mental and physical health, if you want to loop in a different element of it. But I think if that's something that's important to you, then they're going to be comfortable speaking to that. And, they're not going to think twice about it. But I think you could also go broad if you're more comfortable and just ask to hear more about their culture and how they support employee well-being.
Yeah, I agree. And something else I think I would do for myself too is try to understand the team culture and the leadership in addition to the workplace culture, and asking some of those questions around, vulnerability and sharing and communicating and things like that. And I also have found too, I think organizations are pretty um, open in sharing their policies, like on LinkedIn and on their employer page. So I would also look on some of those resources. Maybe not policies, but maybe culture. Whatever, they have a really positive culture. I think companies definitely talk about that. So I would look for that as well.
I totally agree. And you can use the Muse and Fairygodboss to find out more about companies' benefits and policies. I completely agree. Companies are very willing in this day and age and to talk about their mental health policies. So great question and great answers from our panelists. Let's see. This is a great question. So when we think of mental health and when we think of wellness in an organization, how are they different, and or where do they overlap? So what are our thoughts on that?
I can jump in.
Oh,
Go ahead, Beth.
Emily. No, you go right ahead. I'll follow you.
Okay, I was gonna say, I think, and our philosophy, I would say, is that it's all interconnected. One dimension of wellness could affect another one. For instance, for me, physical wellness definitely affects my mental health. I notice when I don't exercise, or maybe I don't go for a walk outside. I've been inside all day, so I think it is very interconnected, and we have done presentations kind of rating where you are within the wellness wheel. I mean, where you're doing really great and maybe where you want to focus some energy. So I would say that, be honest with yourself. See, going back to what Beth said, what's draining you and what's not, and where maybe you can spend a little more time.
I totally agree. For me, all the dimensions of wellness add up to our holistic well-being. To share some more examples in addition to what Emily shared, thinking about financial wellness, if your finances are not where you want them to be, that can create a lot of stress. If your social connections are, again, maybe you don't have as many social connections, or you're a little distance from your network, or you're feeling lonely, that can absolutely contribute to your mental health. So to me, mental health is part of wellness and overall well-being.
Very helpful. I love that, the dimensions of well-being. Awesome. So one more question from our audience, and I think this goes back to kind of talking about the manager direct report conversations. Can we share a little bit more advice on how to create a safe environment? And that, in my opinion, that doesn't have to be between manager and direct report, but talking peer to peer. So what are your tips on creating a safe environment?
We did it again.
Yeah, I know. I'll go and then feel free to jump on. I'm actually going to jump off of something you said earlier. I think that we all own a piece of it. And so leading by example and role modeling vulnerability and speaking up when you have ideas or you have a question and not being afraid can really start. It's almost like a self-feeding loop, right? Wherever you start in the loop, whether you're already feeling safe or you're not yet, but as soon as you start to enter that realm and you speak up, other people feel comfortable speaking up, and it sort of starts to create that environment. And I think as leaders, we need to be really cognizant and work hard. I think, our learning and development group, they have opportunity for like we all have a piece of it and we all can support it. And I think we all kind of have to work together. But I think conversation and candidness and vulnerability is at the core of it, and authenticity. Beth, would you add?
I 1000% agree. I think we all play a role in creating that safe environment, both as a manager and as a direct report. I try to be very honest about how I'm feeling, what's going on, and being proactive in sharing that, and being transparent and vulnerable in sharing that, both with my team. My team knows I sometimes don't sleep very well. So I'll tell them that morning, like, hey, I didn't sleep very well tonight. So if I'm not 100% here, or I didn't sleep very well last night, so if I'm not 100% here, that's why. And I might do the same thing with my peer group of leaders. So just, I think, being open and honest and creating that safe environment where it's okay to say, I'm not at 100% today. Yeah.
And I can also add one more piece, I think, culturally. So at Navy Federal, we have many wellness blogs and communications that we post regularly. So it kind of gives that culture that it's okay to talk about wellness. It's okay to talk about physical health, mental health, and et cetera. So if you have the ability to post communications at your organization, kind of opening the way for those conversations, I think that's really beneficial.
Absolutely. Thank you all for that great advice. Yeah, using the tools that you have available, and also leading with vulnerability, it can really open the door for your teammates and colleagues to feel safe as well. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, I think we are now going to go to our traditional Fairygodboss question that we like to ask in all of our webinars. So we have observed that women do not always feel comfortable bragging and taking ownership of all of the amazing things that they achieve. So I would love to take this opportunity to allow for some bragging. I would love to hear from each of you about an accomplishment, personal or professional, that you are most proud of. And why don't we start with you, Steph?
Awesome. Thank you, Caitlin. And I just want to say I love this question. And in full transparency, as soon as I read it, I immediately felt my body go, oh. So I haven't yet taken on the confidence to enter this conversation without having that reaction, but I look forward to the day that I do. And I love it. So professionally, in the last couple of years, I've taken on some new teams and responsibilities that candidly, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to handle at the time. But thanks to great environment and support and resources and all of the things, I am really proud of how far I've come. And I'm so grateful for the connections I made. So I'm just really proud of myself for sticking through it and learning in spite of myself, honestly. It's just been a fantastic experience and have gotten to connect with so many great people and learn some new things. And then personally, I had actually recently gotten back into horseback riding, which is something I used to do when I was younger. It was a big part of who I was. And it's felt so good to prioritize myself a little bit, especially with the young ones at home, and take that time and really start to build upon my well-being again and practice what I preach in terms of taking care of myself.
Awesome.
I can go next. So professionally, I would say I'm most proud of really just working in a field that truly brings me joy. We spend a lot of time at work, so being able to do what I love is really important to me. And then personally, I would say my value for family and the important relationships in my life, just making time for them and being there for them is really important to me too.
I love hearing from both of you. And I had the exact same reaction Steph did to this question. And I want to use this question as a reflection at a regular cadence going forward because of that reaction and because it was really hard to come up with something that I was like, yeah, I'm proud of this and I would like to brag about this. So thank you, Fairygodboss, for asking this question. Professionally, I am very proud of being on a highly engaged team. I think that's something that doesn't come from one single person, but from everyone together. So this team that we have just works so well together and gels so well together. And I think we push one another to be better, and we're there for each other whenever we're not at 100%. And so I'm just really proud to be part of this environment and to be the leader of the team that really looks out for one another. I like to tell them they're all really amazing humans. They're great professionals and really amazing humans, and I'm so proud to work with them. And then personally, very similar to Steph, I'm just proud of the steps I take to prioritize my own well-being, particularly my physical health, my mental health, and my social well-being. My husband was in the military, just recently got out of the Air Force, and so moving around, we've had the chance to make a lot of friends, but trying to keep those social connections as we move has been a priority of mine recently. So I'm proud of myself for putting myself out there and trying to keep those friendships strong.
Thank you each for sharing. Yes, I really appreciate your bragging, and I love that you address that it can be uncomfortable. It's why we ask. So Steph said you look forward to the moment where you don't feel as awkward bragging. So I think we can all learn from that. Thank you each for sharing. Really great stuff. Amazing. All right, we have a lightning round of questions. So I'm going to ask a few and then would love to hear quickly from each of our wonderful panelists. So what advice would you give your younger self? Emily, we'll start with you.
Sure. I actually think it really goes back to a lot of our conversation today. I think just knowing it's okay to let your leader know when your plate is full, going back to setting those boundaries and having those prioritization conversations.
Steph, how about you?
I would say we are all human and we are all figuring it out. And you are probably way more capable than you think you are. So just give it a shot.
And Beth.
With the caveat that I'm still working on some of these, I would say to be more confident, listen to your gut, and this kind of goes along with bragging, but take up space.
I love that.
Take up a space. Excellent, excellent advice. Yes, and even if we're saying advice to the younger self, it can still be advice for day to day or advice for future self. So, thank you so much for that excellent advice. Let's see. I think we are doing really, really well on time. Yeah, let's take one more question from the audience. So let me just take a look at what we have.
While you're taking a peek, is it okay if I give a shout out to Kim, who's put some really great comments in the comment space? And she shared a personal story about her manager providing her some support whenever she was having a rough mental health time. So I just wanted to shout out Kim. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, I'm seeing that too. Yes, thank you so much. Really appreciate the active conversation. All right, so question from our audience. What is your go-to stress relief activity or routine? I know we talked at the top about exercise, but I'd love to hear from each of you. What is your go-to for stress relief? Maybe if anyone's inspired, or Emily, if you have something.
Sure. My go-to is definitely exercise, especially exercising outside. I try to go on hikes or walks outside, just really getting the fresh air while also moving my body. So that's definitely my go-to.
I've already mentioned exercise. So something that I started doing a couple months ago that I'm really enjoying is journaling. I kind of always shied away from journaling because I don't know, I think I just felt a little self-conscious about putting my thoughts down on paper. But it has been so remarkable. I have enjoyed it so much. So I'm really glad that I started it. And journaling has been such a great stress relief.
I was actually torn between journaling and reading. So I'm glad that you mentioned journaling. It can be so valuable to just kind of like let all of the thoughts uncensored off onto the paper and out of your head, especially before going to bed. But yeah, reading is really big for me too. Just like it's an escape, and you get to go to different worlds and be with different people. I've always really loved it.
Excellent, excellent advice. Personally, I love yoga. I probably go to classes 3 to 4 times a week. It's my go-to stress reliever. And we are doing so great on time. We're going to ask one more quick question from the audience. What's on the horizon for new additions in wellness or mental health? Do you have any insight or predictions for what might be on the horizon?
It's a great question. I think there's so much potential. I think at a high level, we anticipate continuing to do the things that have worked really well and kind of doubling down on those. I think looking for additional ways to integrate into the day-to-day. I think we offer things on a regular basis, but I think finding ways to get the right programs in front of the right people at the right time is the constant challenge. And I think it's something we're going to continue to noodle with and try to find ways to do that, whether it's leveraging AI tools as those become available, or leveraging our communities more effectively, or integrating better with the business. I think we're going to continue to evaluate all those potential options because I think communication is the crux of everything, but it can also be a challenge because there's so much information coming at us all the time. But I think getting that information in front of people is really important, and resources and things. So I think we'll continue to look for ways to do that. Anything I would add?
The only thing I would add, and this is maybe not necessarily a new addition, but something that I'm seeing more and more of is the overlap of public health and the workplace. For example, with social determinants of health and seeing how where people live affects their health, and what can employers do to support people in their physical home environments, their built environments, to support them holistically, both successfully, at work and at home.
I think in general too, just trying to make wellness fun. We see a lot of engagement when we gamify our communications and we try to put a challenge within. So remembering that fun aspect and making it easy and available.
100%.
I love that. Thank you all. Great, great, great insights into the future of wellness and mental health. So I think that means we're at the end of our time. Thank you so, so much, Beth, Emily, and Stephanie. Thank you so much for your exceptional insights. Thank you for joining us and sharing your perspective and your advice. And thank you all for those who tuned into our discussion live today and for your activity in the chat. Really, really active conversation. We'd love to see it. As a reminder, we will be sending out the recording of today's event along with resources to learn more about Navy Federal Credit Union. We will be sending that out after this. So in the meantime, you can always check out Navy Federal Credit Union on Fairygodboss. Like I gave the shout out earlier, they have a great profile with open opportunities and more about their amazing place to work. It sounds like such a great place to work. And we would also love to hear your feedback to help us improve future events. So you can head to the Typeform tab on the right side of your screen to share your thoughts. It's a 1-minute survey. If you could take a moment, we would really appreciate it. And with that, thank you so much, everyone. And we will see you next time. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.